6:30, we're getting feedback.
Yep.
All right, 6:30, we will call the Planning Commission to order. First item of business is Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, next up, we have approval of agenda. Any changes or modifications?
No.
No changes. I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second.
We've got a motion from Brown and a second from Maltzen to approve the agenda. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 4-0. Next item is consent agenda. The only item on consent agenda is Planning Commission minutes from 9/7.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second it.
We got a motion from Brown and a second from Crossland. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 4-0. Next item is open forum. Is there anyone here for open forum? Open forum's limited to 3 minutes for non-agenda items. All right, we'll move on from that. Council update.
So for the 12th, we had the Cheney property, and the issues were similar to the ones you were looking at. We ended up going with the letter guaranteeing us row when the lots are developed, and there were a few other minor things, but for the most part, that was what you had seen. Planning Commission, we pushed out to get more candidates. We locked in the preliminary tax levy, just over 8 million, I think. Do you
I don't
Yeah.
remember.
look it up? It's there. But it was, I think, just over that. And then that was it for the 12th, the 26th. We approved the, so Deerwood, we're going to put some striping such that on the east side is for parking, pedestrians, and the west side there will be no parking. And that way we were able to provide a kind of a car-free area for people. We had talked a little bit about the pavement on 152nd. I think there was a couple estimates. There was a full rebuild at 600, and then there was just a mill and overlay 200. I think we kind of settled on that one, given some of the constraints in the next 10 years. And that was pretty much it. Yeah.
Any questions for council? We don't have it on here. John, can we add staff update right after a council update on future agendas?
Yes, I believe there used to be an item 8. When I was typing it out, I was a little surprised that item 8 was missing, so I'm thinking that's what it was supposed to be.
I know you mentioned you have some staff updates.
I'll cover it as under notices and announcements.
Okay, notices and announcements, okay, that works. I guess the one question I had pertaining for council update, Planning Commission, we have an open chair. I was at that Planning Commission and requested the council to extend it. Just curious if we've had any more applicants.
Yeah, we've had, I think, 4 additional, and
So we're up to about 7 or so, and
yes, and I suspect we'll be we'll be fine with that,
And-
that's set.
Picking at the next council meeting.
Yes,
So, just for clarity, at our next planning commission meeting, then we theoretically should be full again.
yes.
So, just kind of a, just point of clarification here, of making sure everyone's aware of the process, so. Okay, moving on to public hearings. First item is a Opus rezoning site plan and administrative subdivision. There's been a request from the applicant to table this?
Correct. So the applicant has some stormwater issues to kind of resolve. So I would anticipate that'll come back for the next meeting.
Okay. Do we need a motion to table it?
Do we, yeah, I don't.
I'll request one just to kind of keep it
Keep it
official.
formal?
So
All right, I'll make the motion to table the item. Second.
Motion from Malton, a second from Crossland. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 4-0.
thank you.
River Overlook preliminary plat and final plat.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is a request for a preliminary and final plat for River Overlook, which, when I get to the right page, is located at 12610 Overlook Road. This is an existing house that's on the Mississippi River. The applicant is proposing to subdivide it into 2 lots. So we have, currently it is this property here, the existing house is a little covered up here, and again, the applicant is requesting to divide it in half. The property is within the Mississippi Critical Corridor area. I might have some of those words mixed up, but the acronym is MCCR, so there are additional requirements and setbacks from the river that we do not have elsewhere in the city. The existing house, I believe, was built in 1955. It is constructed closer to the river than what we would allow today, so that makes it a non-conforming house. So within, it's a little hard to see on the screen, but the hatched area is, well, I should say, this line here is the bluff line, and it because of the definition of a bluff, there's only a small portion of the property that meets that definition, but because there's a bluff within that hatched area, there's a 20-foot bluff impact zone and then a 40-foot bluff setback for structures. This is what makes the existing home a non-conforming structure. On the proposed lot, there's a small portion in the corner that is within that 40-foot bluff structure setback. It's not really an issue on the plat. When someone takes out a building permit, we'll just have to be mindful that it needs to be 40-foot setback within that bluff. What else can I tell you? Not a whole lot. So utilities for the existing lot are there. The new lot will need to be connected to city sewer and water. Otherwise, this is a fairly simple project. Public hearing notice was published and mailed to property owners. I've not heard anything either way. So the applicant is here and can stand for any questions.
Any questions for staff?
It appears to be, John, but the existing house on the new plat, that is conforming to the 10-foot side yard setback, I'm assuming?
Yes.
Okay.
Looks like it probably is. We'll type in the back corner, but it looks like it is.
Yep. Okay.
All right, I guess would the applicant like to come forward and describe your project? Please state your name and address for the record.
Bill Ramsey, Ramsey Holdings LLC, 217 Dean Avenue East, Champlin. As John had mentioned, it's almost a 2-acre lot. There is the side yard setback on the right, as you just had asked him regarding, exceeds that. The lots each equate, one is just, the existing home is just over an acre, and the proposed future lot is just, it's 9.7038 acres. So it's a fairly large lot. The existing sewer for the home has been stubbed into the lot. The design for the future lot has been set, and we'll go into the street to take the sewer and water to stuff it into the lot. The existing lot and the proposed lot had an area-wide assessment of approximately $7,000. We've paid those fees and are anticipating to have the sewer stuffed into the lot for future home construction in spring of 2024. So the proposed home that we're looking at exceed 4,000 or 5,000 square feet. Be a nice amenity to the area. It's a nice part of the river, so it's pretty clean cut. I mean, trying to look to see if there's something that we've missed. The bluff is basically on the existing home with an Alta survey to make sure what all the elevations are and any pre-existing conditions. And we look forward to your consideration on the approval.
Any questions for the applicant?
I don't have any questions.
I don't have anything.
No, I don't either. I talked to a few neighbors. I live about a block away from there, and nobody I talked to really had any major challenges or complaints about the idea either. I think a house will look nice on that spot.
Fair enough. I guess just kind of out of curiosity, right now it's shown, at least on the grading plan, you've got some overhead utilities.
So we have coordinated and are in process with Connexus Energy to go from overhead to underground.
Okay.
The poles will be removed. They'll come down the right-of-way of the street. They'll bore or trench up to the existing home. The existing home has an application in and permit for the addition of an additional bathroom in the basement and bedroom, an egress window. Back in '55, 2 bedrooms, 1 bath was standard. It isn't today. And so we're trying to bring those elements up to more current standards to make that house more viable.
Okay. And then, I guess the other, the other note, and just, it appears the building pad is slightly in the 40-foot setback, I'm assuming through the building plan. The structure will not be.
So not to be confusing on how it all works, that's true, it is in there. And within the ordinance, it allows when there's an existing non-conforming, and then you skip over to the next standard conforming, which is my neighbor, it allows you to split that difference to 35 feet. We don't know that at this point. I mean, at 40 feet, it still has the view. It has to come through staff for the review of a plan that I don't have. So
Yep.
Does everyone want to push it right to a certain point? I don't know. There is that within your current ordinance and other communities to make it so that it's not just such an abrupt change, that it's a blended feature for both the neighbors' review of what they're looking at and this proposed home.
I also have to imagine that they've got the plot there, which looks like a nice buildable piece of land, but if you're going to build a house of that size, I assume it's going to be a house that's got some interest and not just a big square.
Yeah, no,
You know,
it's-
so you'll work with the land and,
It'll be in excess of $1
Build a
million.
nice house. Yeah.
There's no way around it,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
I'm not the proposed builder at this time on it, and so I think that's an appropriate condition that the staff will go through and make sure that it fits what everybody, the 40-foot or
ultimately, you get to be that 4,000 or 5,000 square foot house, you know, is it the deck that's encroaching within that split difference of 40 to 35, which is permitted? We won't know until we see the plan. Might all stay back in the 40-foot. So the other natural thing, just what I look at as a land developer, is that the existing home to this lot has a natural walkout as it goes to the west. So that's a nice feature for the proposed future home, that it would just not excavating to do that. So those are the pluses that I look at.
Yeah, I don't have any other comments or questions. Thank you.
Thank you for your consideration.
This is a public hearing, so we'll open the public hearing at 6:47. If there's anyone here to speak to this item, I suppose I should, 6:47. Any discussion amongst us? Well,
No, I mean, I think there's plenty of buildable land in the new lot, and the existing home is non-conforming whether they split it or not. And there'll be restrictions on what they can do with that house regardless of whether it's split, so. I mean, there's a few interesting homes back there already, and hopefully they, blend in with some of the older homes and find a nice, interesting architectural way to fit that home into the neighborhood.
Yeah, I generally echo with what Paul said. I don't see too big a deal.
Yeah, I've got
nothing. All right, we will,
Hey, we've got one person online. Do you wish to speak for the public hearing?
No, thank you, just listening in.
Okay, thank you.
You gotta close the public hearing.
yes, we will close the public hearing for this item at 6:48.
I will make a motion to approve the preliminary plat and final plat to subdivide the 12610 Overlook Road lot into 2 lots, subject to the conditions in the staff report.
I will second the motion.
We've got a motion and a second, a motion from Brown and a second from Malton to approve the preliminary and final plat per the recommendations in the staff report. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes 4-0. Next item, Dayton Fields, 4th edition preliminary plat.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is a request for the preliminary plat of Dayton Field 4th edition, as well as the site plan review for both, I'm going to call it Lot 1 and Lot 2. Lot 1 is a QT commercial, Lot 2 is J&A glass. There's also a conditional use permit for outside storage on Lot 1 QT commercial. So this property it's a vacant property, so it does not have an address, but it's at the southwest, I'll call it the southwest corner of West French Lake Road and 121st Avenue. 121st Avenue was recently completed, so I believe there's a street sign. But if you look on Google Maps, it doesn't show up, so it's pretty new. So this property is zone I-1 industrial. Again, the applicant is requesting to split it into Lot 1 on the north and Lot 2 on the south. As far as the preliminary plat, I guess depending on what the commission would like to do, there's 3 applications. They kind of intermix quite a bit. So what I'd like to do is, you can either vote for these all together or vote for them separate. If there's something that's a little different, it'd be preferred that you do it separate. But with the preliminary plat, there's not really anything different about it. It is an industrial plat. It does meet the requirements for platting. So, I'm not hearing any questions specific on the preliminary plat. The site plan, in kind of splitting the discussions on the, I'm going to go to the easier lot for Lot 2 on the south side, so this would be for J&A Glass. This is a straight view, kind of looking towards the west, where the trees would be on the north side buffering Lot 2 and Lot 1. The majority of the existing trees are going to stay. There's kind of, I don't believe it's a wetland, I think it's kind of a lower area that's in between the two. So here we have Lot 2 for J&A Glass. The access will be off of West French Lake Road. This is a business that's currently located in Rogers that will be relocating to Dayton. The elevations for the proposed building are on the left side of the screen here. Otherwise, we can move on to Lot 1 or try to answer any specific questions for Lot 2.
On Lot 1, in your packet, you had a recommendation of putting the evergreen trees. If you go to the landscaping plan on Lot 1, I just want to make sure everyone's on the same page of where you were thinking of putting those trees. I'm assuming you're talking about putting them on the, what would that be? Eastern, kind of the eastern boundary? I think I got, yeah.
I'm going to call, well, yeah, so let me skip over to Lot 1. So with...
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
Yeah.
So usually, people would talk number 1, number 2, and I switched it a little bit on you. So for Lot 1, so this is QT Commercial. This is a roofing company that's based out of Brooklyn Park that will be relocating here. So with the site plan, the access point will be coming off of 121st Avenue. They are similar to J&A Auto Glass, so the building elevations are on the left side of the screen here. QT is requesting a conditional use permit for outside storage, which would be located behind the building here. In the application material, they're suggesting a 6-foot fence that would screen this. Staff's recommendation is an 8-foot fence, as well as potentially additional pine trees that would be around the fence here to screen. When you look at the site view, it looks different than it does on paper. So the building pad, I believe, is somewhere between 15 and 20 feet above the street elevation. The building itself is going to screen much of the outdoor storage. There's existing trees that are back here. Most of those will stay, which will also provide most of the screening from the adjacent mobile home park. I'm going to skip back to the aerial photo here. So this is the Dayton Mobile Home Park. As the commission may recall, there was some time ago where there was an addition that was approved to expand the mobile home park into this parcel to the east, which then abuts the two properties that are being developed. So it is very wooded. Again, most of these trees are going to stay. There's also existing wetland that serves as kind of a buffer between Lot 1 and the mobile home park, and this coincides with where all the trees are. Depending on what happens with the mobile home park expansion, I don't know if there's there's not going to be the same level of screening as there is now, because a lot of those trees on the mobile home park's property will end up being removed. But I'll also say, I think kind of our responsibility is to ensure that there's sufficient screening between residential property and non-residential property. There's also a certain responsibility for when that residential property develops that they also put in the same amount of screening. So. What questions can I answer?
When you talked about additional screening, where's the north here? Oh, I gotta look at my map. I can't see that one.
Let's see if I can.
Making
North is
sure.
up on that plan.
North would be up on this one.
So
Yeah, so the area that I guess I'm most concerned about screening is not, stop your cursor right there, from there on to the
Okay.
building. So, because the road is, so I'm more, when the fence jags a little bit, that's where I'm more concerned about making sure our screening is as good as it can be.
Up by the wetland.
Yeah, right there. Yep. Now, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't screen the rest, but I'm more concerned about, if we're gonna add double rows, and it appears there's more space there too than the
Yep.
other sides. Is that what you were thinking, or were you thinking everything?
What your suggestion makes the most practical sense, and this is going to provide screening from the street side where you're not gonna have the public that's looking at it. There should be sufficient screening all the way around it. In the staff report, that's kind of what I was recommending, depending on, I guess I would suggest it's more of a site-based decision during construction, is if there needs to be more trees, then add more trees, and if not, then leave it alone. But I do agree that there should be more screening towards the street.
What is the type of fence that's being proposed? I'm trying to find that here.
I
haven't seen it yet.
I'm gonna let the applicant
Okay.
address that.
You might be able to find it by then too.
There was one other staff recommendation in there too about adding additional lighting on 121st along Lot 1, which it sounded like was kind of non-conforming with the remainder of the street, or at least the remainder of the street heading down towards the mobile home park doesn't have lighting
Yes.
existing. Was there a reason why they wanted to set that up separate from what was already existing on the street?
Correct. So within the city code, when you have a development that's adjacent to a pedestrian facility, it requires certain number of amenities out of a selection. And so in the code, I believe it's 2 out of, I gotta find the page here, of, come back there. So essentially, the applicant is requested to pick 2 of the following. So either patterned materials on the walkways, shelters, trash receptacles, drinking fountains, pedestrian lighting, or fountain sculptures, mobiles, and kiosks or banners. So there's going to be landscape. And so I guess kind of the question is there really a need for additional amenities? And this is kind of, it's up to the council and planning commission. I guess my suggestion would be is to have the applicant say what they would like to add and then have that confirmed by planning commission, city council. So on 121st, there is an existing trail. It's very fresh. There will be street lighting installed. It's not currently up there. It's more than likely that that's going to also cover and light up the trail as well. Along West French Lake Road on the opposite side, that will be, eventually will be a regional trail. And so you are going to have a lot of pedestrian traffic on that trail along West French Lake Road, not necessarily on 121st. So it's more of a connecting trail that will connect West French Lake Road to Brockton. So I guess the example I'll have is, if there were going to be a shelter or trash receptacle, it would get a whole lot use if it were on West French Lake Road versus 121st, not on this property. So because the location of the property, it's not going to get the same amount of traffic as you're going to see on the West French Lake Road side.
This really doesn't impact anything, but Dayton Park just recently sold. I don't know if you heard that, but it had a change in ownership.
Oh, yes.
Within the last month-ish, maybe 2.
So their plans for expansion could change.
Well,
Don't know.
the other thing that, obviously this property owner, the seller in this case, controls the 2 lots that we're talking about today as well as this wooded area.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know what their intentions are, but
Mm-hmm.
something to keep in mind.
Any other questions for staff? I guess with that, would the applicant like to come forward?
Is there a way we want to handle this?
Yeah, let's, I guess,
Should we do lot 2 first, like John did?
we can do lot 2 first if we want to,
Doesn't really matter, but. Doesn't matter to me. Does anyone have a preference?
No.
I don't.
No, let's go backwards. Let's do 2 first.
We'll count down.
Yeah.
I'm the applicant for lot number 2.
Okay, all right.
Name and address?
Sure. Good evening. My name is Jeremy Thomas, 1100 Mendota Heights Road, Mendota Heights. I'm with RJ Ryan Construction, representing the applicant, the end user, J&A Glass, who is also here as well, if you have any specific questions for them. So what we're proposing is a 40,000 square foot office warehouse building, meeting height requirements. You can see the elevation there. The intent is for the building owner to occupy most of the building himself with potential future users as needed, depending on how much space he decides to take. On day one, there will be a certain amount of office that is to be determined. We're still in the design process, specifically in the office, but that'll be somewhere in the realm of 2,500 to 5,000 square feet, plus or minus. The current parking is set up for it's shown for about 8,000 square feet of office. That results in 56 required parking spots. We're showing 73, so we're currently overparked. Should the future secondary tenant, if he so decide to exercise a second tenant, would come in and require more parking. We're also trying to position ourselves as best we can with the building on this site to avoid removal of the vegetated treat area to the fullest extent possible. You can see the building is positioned in the lower right-hand corner of that site for that very reason. Also, the building is strategically positioned to provide a view from the office, what could be a potential future second floor office mezzanine, to have a view towards the lake. Office facing away from the trees, the office front facing away from the trees provides some natural screening of that loading dock area as well. Landscape plan, as you see there, meeting all requirements, and ponding on the natural low side of the site.
Do you know this, because maybe the applicant or the owner himself, but with the glass business, are they going to have like fleet vehicles parked here? And if so, how many? And has that kind of been factored into your parking?
Sure, I can let Nick answer that question. Nick's here as well. Yeah.
Sure.
Hi, I'm Nick Jude. I'm the owner of J&A Glass. We have probably about, excuse me, 20 fleet vehicles. Some of those go home with installers and some of them get parked. And ideally we try to park, everything inside is generally our thought process there.
Okay.
Any other questions on that too? For the applicant?
Can the public ask a question right now?
Nah.
We'll get that in a minute. We may, I guess we have no further questions now. We may
Yeah, no, very straightforward, I think.
We may call you back up after the public hearing to
Thank you.
help answer some questions. Move to lot 1 applicant. We'll do the public hearing as 1.
Sounds good.
Good evening, Joe Raddick with Contour Civil. I'm here on behalf of Jason Quilling with Quality Trusted Commercial Roofing and Construction. A little bit of a mouthful. Yeah, similar project as across the property line there. It's about 38,000 square feet underfoot. We are proposing a mezzanine in the bump out corner in the northeast corner of that building. That's for future office expansion if warranted. But yeah, similar setup. We have the truck court in the rear of the building, the outside storage, tucked back behind the building, behind the trees, try to hide it from view from, I guess, 121st and to the extent possible, West French Lake Road. Parking up along 121st, I think we have about 50 stalls we're putting in up front, and we have proof of parking for the balance of the required parking on the site. Stormwater in the low northeast corner, and a little infiltration basin or filtration basin kind of in the center parking lot as well. A lot of landscaping. We got budgets back. It's about little over $200,000 in landscaping to meet the code requirement. I know the owner was a little taken aback by that, and he specifically asked me to mention or request maybe a reduction in that, if possible. I think the way the code reads is you have to look at the open space, and when you have lots that, are 8 acres but only 5 acres of usable, you have a lot of open space that counts towards your requirement that isn't really practical to landscape. So we have a lot of landscape material out here. If screening is a concern, I think we can relocate trees, put them along that fence to provide additional screening. We have a lot of opportunity. I think we could scale back and even still provide that screening that you're looking for. You guys asked a question about the fence earlier. Right now it's planned to be a vinyl coated 6-foot chain link slatted fence. We could increase that, like John had suggested, to 8 feet. We feel that 6 feet is adequate, just we're so tucked back in a way that we think it's going to be screened pretty well, especially if we did put coniferous trees along that northeast side facing West French Lake Road. But yeah, we're here for comments, questions. Happy to answer any questions you guys have.
John, with regards to the request in the open space, is there some validity to what he's saying there? I guess I haven't really looked at that in that context.
So, being new and fairly, well, yeah, I'm not as familiar with that code, that section of the code, so I couldn't give you a detailed answer than that. So,
Okay.
With conditional use permits or site plan reviews, I mean, the whole intent is to compare the proposal to what's required. Landscaping is a fairly, it's important, but not, the details are more up to the discretion of the council and the planning commission. So, if it's warranted to have a decrease in landscaping, then the question is what is the decrease?
So to give you an example, Lot 2, basically same size building, same layout, same parking for the most part, right? They require 119 trees. Lot 1 requires 156 trees, just by virtue of the size of the lot.
Is the stormwater basin in the front of this, that's a stormwater basin?
Correct.
Is that serving both Lot 1 and 2?
It is not. It's
Okay.
only, that's a little bit of a convoluted question, because the stormwater for these two lots has been looked at in aggregate together. So perhaps Lot 1 is providing a little bit more of the required treatment as Lot 2. I don't know for certain, but it could be there's a minor, but it's primarily for Lot 1.
Okay.
But yeah, so 31% more trees, Lot 1 versus Lot 2. Actually, our building footprint's a little smaller on Lot 1. Again, I'm not trying to pick Lot 2 over Lot 1. It's a interesting conundrum when you think about it. It's the same project, but you have 31% more landscape material
Lot 1 also has
required.
a bigger kind of public profile too, though, being on the corner of those two streets. Lot 2 is kind of.
It does, but that's not what makes the requirement what it is. You know what I'm saying? It's literally based off of open space area. So it's a larger lot, requires more landscaping. I agree, though, it is a more prominent picture, but it's $200,000 of landscaping for a pretty small building.
I've always struggled with the over landscaping. I get why we want more trees, but even in the picture right there, when you look at all those coniferous trees, when they grow up in 15 years, it's not going to look pretty like it does the first 10 years. So, but the code's the code, so I'm going to go with what everyone else here thinks on that. And ultimately, I guess if we're going to make a recommendation to the council to reduce the landscaping, I suppose we could do that if enough of us felt strongly about it.
And we do have opportunity to relocate trees. I mean, there's, like I said, it's 156 trees. We can put them wherever people feel they're going to be the most effective for screening. I mean, we got $200,000 to work with here, right? We should be able to.
Well, I think to
the
to the extent you can screen around the outdoor storage as much as you can, especially in the one corner noted earlier, as well as the rest of it. You know, assuming there's a little bit of topography change and it's getting tighter there, so I'm not sure how much you can do there, but.
I think to the south and to the southeast, which is in between the two lots, I don't see that being a critical screen area because it's loading dock to loading dock, right? You're not really gaining much screening or benefit, a public benefit, I guess, if you will.
Can you, I mean, obviously I see the materials that they're planning to store there, but one thing I guess I was struggling to just visualize in my head was the height when they said 8 to 16 feet. Are they planning to install some racking? Because otherwise, how are they going to get 16 feet of height and materials?
So there is some racking, but that's not what goes to 16 feet. They have, you've probably seen the Capital Partners building to the north, and then beyond that, the Graco building. When they go to do their roof, you see those big pallets of the white foam insulation. So this is primarily a commercial roofing company. So they store that material on site, you know, for a period of time before it goes out to the production. And those pallets come in a 4 foot high by 4 foot wide by 8 foot long. It's basically 4 by 8 sheets, 4 foot high, and they would stack potentially 4 of them high.
Okay, so they're lighted enough that they can stack them on top of each other?
Yeah.
Okay.
John and I talked about it today. I called the owner, and then I called the production manager as well. 16 would be great, but they said if they had to live with 12, they could. Right, they can go 3 high instead of 4 high. They think they have enough space, but they don't want to. They don't want to ask for 12, and then they need 16, and then they end up stacking at 16, and then they get a call from the city. So it's really, that's the only thing. Everything else is 8 feet and under. It's just that white board that stays on site for a few weeks before they bring it out to the next site.
You know, outdoor storage, like everything, gets a bad rap from the few people that abuse it, and that would be my only concern is that. And obviously this owner doesn't plan on doing that, but if, you know, stuff piled up there, sat there forever for 16 feet, and if this owner's buying this and planning to turn the inventory, I mean, it's just staging.
Yeah.
I'm probably okay with 16 feet, but I might also suggest that, you know, material can't be stored for more than, like, I don't know, 6 months. I'm just throwing a random number that we should probably talk about.
I think that would
And I
be
say,
fine.
like, the specific item, obviously, if it's the same item turning over and over, maybe it's there the whole time.
Right.
But
yeah, it's that white beadboard. If you left that stuff outside for 3 months, it'd go to hell, you know, so you
right.
They turn and burn it as quick as they can.
Yeah, and the building height again was 20?
We're just under 30.
Yeah, just under 30.
Yeah, and there's a mezzanine, you know, facing the lake. It's unbuilt initially. The office will primarily be on the first floor, but they do have that kick up in that offset corner there. Yeah, it's an existing business currently located in Brooklyn Park. They have about 50 employees. They're looking to grow, you know, maybe as much as 70, similar to JA Glass. I mean, they're in the same industry. They want to relocate to Dayton. The owner's a longtime resident of Dayton. He lives up on Lawndale by the golf course. Wants to be closer to home. Employees are good out here, you know, looking to relocate.
Yeah, first of all, I think they're impeccable landscape plans. Some of the best we've ever seen.
I know you're saying that.
You think Paul would agree?
What's that?
You think Paul would agree?
Yeah, he drew them.
Oh, he did?
Yeah,
Oh.
they're his.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. You know what? I don't know.
No, seriously though, I mean, they're visible lots. They're up on hill from French Lake. The outdoor storage does get a bad rap. you know, the fencing's not gonna do anything, it's just chain link, black coated chain link, right?
Slat.
Slatted, okay. So, I mean, I would just concentrate those trees on that side, and it's already starting to happen, maybe there's a little bit more. I'm not as concerned about that kind of property to property, you know, just because we're looking at these at the exact same time, which doesn't happen very often. You know, I think you can move some of those over, or reduce some of those. I mean, I don't, if we want to reduce it a little bit, you know, we've got a person trying to bring a business to our city, you know, if we, in this case, where we're in an industrial area, is it okay to reduce plantings by 10% or something? I mean, it's just a random number, but, you know, there's very heavily wooded. I mean, I know lot 2 especially, and it looks like lot 1 are both trying to preserve as much of that tree line as possible. It's on the edge, which I think is very valuable, and you don't see developers do that very often. Usually they just clear cut everything and plant new little trees, so. I appreciate the fact that, especially in lot 2, that they're trying to maintain that tree line on the west, and maybe it's not as buildable over there anyway, but still they're maintaining it. So I would entertain, in this case, due to the location in our industrial area, that as long as the screening of the outdoor storage and proper landscaping around the building, you know, that some percentage of reduction would be okay.
I guess before we get into our comments,
Yeah.
just let's make sure we hear the public's first.
Yeah, sure, sorry. Yeah,
So any
jumping
other
in.
questions for the applicant would be appropriate at this point?
Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
Thank you.
Similar to lot 2, we may call you back up.
Sure. Happy to come up.
I guess with that, 7:17, we will open the public hearing on these properties. If there's anyone who'd like to come forward. Name and address and...
Hi, Tom McCusick, 11870 West French Lake Road. Is there a slide that shows where this new road, 121st Street, is and where it goes? Or can someone describe it on this map or any of these?
Isn't it on your photo there, John, too?
Yeah, so on the aerial photo, it's, I lose my arrow here. So it's this line that goes across the aerial photo there, yeah, correct.
So on the right-hand side, it's that French Lake Road is the terminus, and then it goes to where?
Oh, the road to Brockton.
Okay. And is it completed?
Close.
It's very close. So the
Where's Graco? Right there?
Graco is going to be above the screen.
Okay.
There's an industrial building in the corner there that's almost done. That earlier someone said Capital Partners, that's what they were referring to.
Okay, so access for lot, and 2 is the one above.
This is lot 1 and then lot 2.
Okay. Lot 1's gonna have access off of West French Lake Road, correct?
Off of 121st.
121st.
Lot 1 is, the other lot's gonna have access off of West French Lake Road, so they're gonna,
Correct.
and that's their major access. And then the other one's gonna go either to Brockton or up West French Lake Road.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't, because with all the building, it's hard to, I mean, you couldn't get through there, so I live just down the road.
Okay.
I don't go that way because there's no place to go.
It's always under construction.
Right. So the nature of the work that's going to happen at these 2 facilities, the roofing company is going to have office and some outside storage, and then what happens in the building? More storage? Could the applicant speak to that?
Warehousing of materials. And
Roofing materials?
Roofing materials, yeah.
Okay, how many employees are going to be on
Sure.
site?
If-
Trying to get a sense of the traffic.
If we're going to have much of a dialogue, if we need to have it on with the microphones. Yeah, please. Thank you.
As someone who lives in the neighborhood, trying to get a sense of what all these industrial applicants and buildings are gonna add to the traffic load in front of our property, so.
Yeah, so QT, Quality Trusted Commercial Roofing, they have approximately 50 employees right now.
That would be on site every day coming there?
No, they would, some of them, similar to JA Glass, they have fleet vehicles, they take those vehicles home, come to the office, check in, get their materials, go to the job sites, they're gone from, approximately 8 in the morning till 5 at night, where they would come back, unload, et cetera, and then they're, construction company, 7 to 5, 7 to 10 p.m.
And these
If you
are,
have to.
give me a sense of the size of these vehicles that would be traveling. Are they large truck? pickup
No,
trucks?
they don't, they're not tractor trailers, they're straight trucks at largest, or just, 1-ton pickups.
Okay. That's what I want to know. Okay, can I, the glass company? Yeah, can you come up?
Yeah, we're very similar. We have currently 45 employees. Probably 22 are in the office or, that are on site, and the
Every
rest are
day?
out on
Okay.
jobs. And we have, 1,500 trucks to Pro Masters, nothing really bigger than that.
And this is auto glass?
No, we don't do any auto glass.
Okay, so,
We're like 25% residential, so we do like shower doors, mirrors, and then commercial, so storefronts.
so the work is all completed, all conducted off-site from,
Yeah, we're
From this
primarily an
facility?
installer. Like we get in shipments of aluminum, and then we cut those up to make storefronts.
okay?
Those window frames then get moved out to job sites, and there's probably some in this building, and then we install them.
So you're warehousing some materials and,
Yeah.
and then basically have an office for your building? for
Yeah,
your
like
business.
we have architects and CAD designers and, just PMs and estimators that are primarily in the office.
Okay. Great, that's what I wanted to know. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Anyone online?
There's nobody online.
All right.
I have a question.
Yeah, come on up.
My name is Shane Jock. I'm at 11950 West French Lake Road. And basically, the question I have is about the outside storage. Did we determine whether or not it's an 8-foot fence or a 6-foot fence?
We
I
have
was-
not had any formal discussion, meaning to understand what the consensus is among us. We
Okay.
might have different ideas up here.
So I obviously would rather have an 8-foot fence to cover up as much as possible. My property is directly across from these properties, so that's what I'm looking for.
Okay.
That's really all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Anyone else? All right, with that, we will close the public hearing at 7:24. Discussion.
First of all, I think it's easy enough to do all this at once. You guys in agreement, or do we want to break these apart?
I think we can do it all.
All right. Lot 2, I don't really have any feedback. I think it's pretty straightforward. Lot 1, the only feedback I have is kind of similar to what Paul spoke to, is I'm okay with a landscape reduction, whether that's 10 or 15%. I guess the one thing, with the recommendation of the council is I'm going to give John a little homework to maybe put some context to the validity to what the applicant said, because I think it's important that we have a little logic on if we're going to reduce it, why we reduced it. And if these two lots are nearly identical buildings, obviously one's maybe bigger, but you can't, just because the lot's bigger, it's still constrained about what you can put on it. So I do think there's some context there that I think I would support what Paul had mentioned about reducing the landscaping. I'm a fan of the 8-foot fence. And I've been debating in my head whether it doesn't seem like it's necessary to put like a condition on inventory turnover. And, you know, why I don't think it's necessary, because I don't think it's going to be an issue with the applicant, but it's the reason why sometimes outdoor storage gets a bad rap, is stuff sits there that's an eyesore, and it sits there forever because no one wants to get rid of it. So it doesn't seem like the applicant would be concerned if we did that. It might be a policing nightmare, but it'd only be a policing nightmare if something ugly sat there for a long time. That's the way I view it, so. And the last thing, I would just, again, make sure that staff focuses the landscaping efforts of all the trees that are there, of making sure that, you know, we're putting them the maximum use and screening.
Yeah, lot two, I wouldn't mind seeing a little bit more tree cover on the east property line. And there's not a lot of space just because of the placement of the building in the parking lot. And I guess I'd have to leave it up to the landscape designer if they can squeeze them any closer, depending on the type of tree. But might be nice to just screen the face of that building a little bit more. I'm not 100% understanding how grades work from this to the property owner that just spoke. His property is be straight shot over, so whatever we can do to help kind of screen the building, screen parking lot lighting at night, you know, so.
On this is a panoramic photo, and so it's a little bit obscured, but that intersection is at a lower elevation than lot 2. So you're going uphill somewhat.
Yeah. Yeah, going uphill and then pole lights in the parking lot or whatever, you know, you're kind of looking up at them. So whatever we can do to just get some trees and help knock down some of that light spread off the property would be good.
You know, even with the landscaping plan, if we reduced it, do we know what size of trees they plan to put in when they put them in?
So the code requires 2-inch diameter, 2-inch diameter trees at the
So
base.
if we required coniferous trees, what kind of height do I get with a 2-inch diameter?
Well, so this would be a 2-inch.
Maybe you don't know that, fair enough.
2-inch deciduous, and I believe it's 8.
And I guess my thought too is if we're going to decrease the actual number of trees, maybe we put a little more burden on the property owner, say, you know what, to screen a certain area, let's start out with 8-foot tall evergreens. And I don't know what that might hurt, it might go opposite way in the budget, but I'd rather have trees that do something right away and then having a bunch of little trees that might not even make it, the deer eat them, whatever.
Sure, and I believe for coniferous trees, I believe 8 feet is the requirement.
They go up higher, but, it's the requirement?
So the standard is 2.5-inch for overstory, 1.5-inch for ornamental, and 6 foot for coniferous.
Okay.
So the way the code reads, you have essentially the same amount of overstory and coniferous trees, and then you have double that amount in ornamentals. So like the snow crabs, those types of things. But yeah, you're right. We'd probably rather plant, 100 6-foot trees than 90 8-foot trees, because we'd be spending more on 90 8-foot trees than we would on 100 6-foot trees.
Yeah, and I'm just going for the maximum screening effort as soon as possible.
For sure. Yep. And just to reiterate, it's a 30% increase from one site to the other, and the other building's smaller than the one that has less.
Yeah, so
That wouldn't be a conversation though if we weren't looking at these at the same time.
Yeah,
so.
if they're 6-foot trees versus 8, that's not a concern to me.
Yeah, and those grow a foot to 15 inches a year, so a 6-foot tree is.
I'm just
8
looking at
feet
all
in.
those ornamentals, I guess, thinking that they almost look like coniferous too in that photo. Those little ones on the other cap.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Wondering if
any
that's what
kind
you
of
put in.
landscape screening does just take time,
Right.
to actually do its job. So, I mean, we rely a lot on it, but it's a long-term thing.
So I guess one of the comments I have, regarding the landscaping, we've got it shown here just kind of on the northeast side. I'm actually thinking we need to focus it all the way around like it is. As we look at,
Peter, when you're saying around,
don't negate the fact that this is a loading dock backing up to a loading dock, because the other loading dock is actually offset more, and there's the ravine is kind of in between the two properties. It's hard to see them when you look at them on the drawings, because the drawings are separate. Yeah.
Not here.
Yeah, Paul put them together on his.
There is a tree line here
On
on lot 2, right?
on lot 2, but as you're coming down West French Lake Road, you're gonna be able to see into that loading dock space and the storage space
Yep.
quite a bit. So,
So Peter, you're
wrapping
kinda
around
speaking
kinda right into there, yep,
that area.
yep.
So it's both, it's kind of both areas. It's not just one or the other that you're gonna see from French Lake Road.
Yeah,
The red and the green that
yep.
John drew.
Depending on which direction you're coming, you're gonna see it. And I get it, there's a ravine there, and we gotta work around that, but this is kind of part of that.
Yeah, that ravine is pretty heavy with trees, but we have plenty of material, plant material to move around. We can put it wherever you guys want it, for sure.
So is that white space that is to the right of the red and green, that's
That's all trees.
ravine?
That's all
heavy. I mean,
trees.
you can barely walk through there.
That's, well, I guess on Lot 2's application, okay, it's not as clear on here.
'Cause there-
It does say existing trees to remain on this one.
Yeah.
There's a pond in the middle,
Yeah,
you
there's
can
a
kind of
pond,
see
yeah,
it
right.
on that.
Yeah, so on that one, they were bubbled with a tree line. On this one, they're a straight line, so it's harder to
Oh,
depict.
they like to keep you guessing.
On the line types. So now that I see that and got some clarity there, I'm less concerned. I have less concern about that.
But like I said, there's plenty
Yeah.
of trees to go around. I think we can move
Yeah.
them around and do
I
a
think the
better job
point
of
is
breaking up that fence.
putting as
and-
many that make sense so they grow healthy and screen that area,
Yeah.
the red and green area, for sure.
Yeah, and I just, lot 2, east elevation, I mean, it's a direct line of sight from the property owner that spoke to that, where that building's gonna be, so whatever we can do on the east property line for lot 2.
Yeah.
I think back to Lot 1 on the landscaping plan, if the planning commission or council want to look at removal or lessening the impact,
I'm sorry.
Lot
I got
1.
distracted. Back to
Yeah.
lot 1. Okay.
it's the ones to the left of the driveway. You know, that's kind of the area, we're in a heavy, at this point, we're in the heavy industrial area of Dayton. We're away from the lake, we're across from everything else that's already built, and that's the area I'm also, putting my head on. If we got snow storage out there and spots for that, that may seem like a better spot for some snow storage and maybe some just sod there, if you guys agree. I mean, don't
Yeah.
take it all away,
No, I would
but
agree.
that would be the area I would lessen. Kind of keeping that corner more prominent with landscaping.
I agree.
Makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Do you guys, I don't know if I have concern with the 16 feet versus 12 feet. I guess if we lean towards the 16 feet, I'd be more inclined to the condition I talked about of trying to make sure nothing permanently is left there for outdoor storage. Where at 12 feet, I'm probably less concerned, but I don't even know. I guess I'd be curious to see what your guys' thoughts.
Is the storage, this is more for the owner, maybe will they be pushing it up against the fence? So if it's 16 foot tall, it's right up against the fence and it's twice as tall as the fence? Or is it more kept towards the middle or towards away from it? Because I mean, it's a big difference if it's 20 feet away from the fence or right up against the fence.
Or up against the building for that
Yeah,
matter.
or up against the building.
I can't say for sure, but what I can say about their existing operation, it's a similar situation where you drive past the front of the building and it gets stored up against this edge. That's not to say he might not store it against the building, but currently when you drive into his yard, it's against the back fence.
That'd be the best place to put the 16-foot stuff. If you,
The building's going to support it. So So I guess clarification, so if it's 16 feet of storage, then I'm assuming the pallet racking is also not quite 16?
It's
or
not, the
how
pallet
tall
racking
is
is
that?
only 8 foot.
8 feet.
The only
okay.
thing that gets stored to 16 feet is if they stack 4 high of the foam board, which is generally not required, but if they get a huge order in for a 200,000 square foot warehouse and they need to drop it, they're gonna go 16 feet high, and then it's gonna be out a week later.
And everything else with the outdoor storage is gonna be at that 8 foot or 8 foot or lower.
Mm-hmm.
I think with it being an 8 foot or lower, I'd agree with the 8 foot fence then too, just to kind of be right in line with what the storage height would be.
One other thing I should mention is, and this didn't get added to the plan, and I don't know if it's required to be listed, but they will have fuel on site.
This is propane?
Not the propane. So the
Oh.
propane got listed, but the production manager forgot to list their fuel barrels. So they'll have 2,000 gallon tanks of gasoline and diesel for their fleet service.
Above ground tanks?
Above ground tanks, Centra Soda, rented from Centra Soda, managed by Centra Soda, on a, typical concrete pad. They don't know for sure where it's gonna go yet, because they kind of like to get their system going and then put them down. But it will be behind the building.
How tall are those tanks?
I think they're about 6 feet tall, and then it'll sit on a 16-inch, or a 6-inch concrete curb.
Okay.
So I don't know if we have to add that.
Yeah,
the
I've got to
CUP.
look through the code and see how that's,
Okay.
how that's addressed. So if there's
We do
anything
want to get that
specific to
included,
it.
though, if that's something that we need to, if possible.
I've got to look through the code. I can't do it tonight.
No,
So, yeah.
totally fine.
Yeah. And then how many, was it one tank or two?
It's a 2 1,000 gallon tank. One of them is regular gasoline, one of them's diesel, and then there's a 500 gallon off-road diesel.
So 3 tanks.
3
total.
tanks, 2 1,000s, 1 500.
One thing I think that would help council, when this goes to council, is if you can identify, obviously where those tanks are gonna be, but then also identify like the max area they might need for 16-foot storage.
Mm-hmm.
And you specifically end up putting it in that corner.
Mm-hmm.
I think that helps everyone have less concerns versus
Gotcha.
if you piled it right against where the area we're trying to screen with the red and green.
Yeah, I hear you. We can. I think
And maybe
we
it
can-
works out that way, maybe you'll find out it doesn't, and I guess that's what, if I were council, I'd want to know that now.
Mhm.
Of where is the 16-foot stuff going to be?
I will find that out and we'll get that on the plan. And like I said, with the fuel tanks, they don't 100% know. We can make a educated guess, but until they kind of start using the site, they're somewhat mobile.
Yeah.
You can pick them up, move them around if you need to. So.
As we're looking at this lot and the operation of it, there's a fair amount of landscaping on that side, that drive aisle as well. That
Mhm.
seems like
Right up
another-
against the building there?
Yeah, the front of it seems like it would be nice and appealing from the street, but the rest of it, there's kind of a little break in it. The rest of it seems like another spot if you guys are looking to chop out some landscaping to save costs. It doesn't seem to do anything to the general public with the heavy screening of trees on the property line and everything else.
Yeah, and that's inside the fence too,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I totally agree. That
So-
that makes sense.
And there's two trees back there in the lot that seem like they would be prone to trucks hitting them or something, so.
Agreed.
Another spot to save a little bit. I guess with the tanks being back there at 6 feet, I think 8-foot minimum fence is what I would be in favor of.
I did do a little elevation study this afternoon, and a 6-foot fence at that northeast line, at 50 feet into the outside storage, it's about equivalent to 10 and a half, and then at 100 feet, it's about equivalent to 15.
From the road?
Just because you're looking up like this, so, for what it matters.
Understood. I think where I'm looking at this is, yeah, we have that at the road, but then we also have adjacent users that may be at higher elevations,
Sure.
so.
I'm just struggling in my brain understanding if I want to recommend a condition on either the degree of like the length of storage or even the height. I mean, I want them to have a successful business, and if the inventory is turning over for staging, I'm not super concerned. But I'd be even less concerned if, they could confirm and specifically put in the outdoor storage permit that it's going to be stored in a specific area. Do you know if your applicant feels comfortable if we were to put a condition in that you put that in that corner? I don't know how much they ever would need, if that's.
I would say that it's almost a given it's going there. I mean, if you see in the southeast corner of the building that's their patio. They're gonna have a roll-up door there for their office workers that, it can roll up, people can walk out, open air patio, have lunch. So I just don't see them storing all that ugly stuff right next to where they're gonna have their gatherings. I just think it naturally wants to be on that back edge.
Is that back wall mostly loading dock doors?
Yeah. Well, there's drive-ins.
Yeah.
And then loading docks in the middle.
Yeah. So they're not gonna store anything right up that the whole area
Against
for
the building.
truck driving,
Yep.
yeah. So it's gotta go along the fence.
Yeah, as long as, so if we could, I guess I would put a condition in there and stick with the 16 feet and probably be less concerned about the term, is that if we could say that the 16-foot storage height goes in that, is that the southeast corner?
Be the south corner.
The south corner?
South corner.
That would alleviate my concern a lot more. And so everything else is, 8 feet or shorter.
Would you put it as a friendly recommendation so that I can check with the owner and then make sure that that's acceptable? I don't want
Everything we do is
to,
friendly.
I don't want to paint him in a corner.
Technically, the council's got to approve it, so when you
Sure.
come back, if you find, that's why I'm saying you bring this to them, if you come back and say that's not going to work.
Right.
The council might be like, "Oh, I wish the planning commission would have did that then to us," but.
Or do you want to say, I mean, here's the way I was trying to think about it from I was struggling with that too. Do you want to say anything kind of in that pink, almost rectangle there is allowable for 16 feet, and then as you get closer to the northeast, we drop down?
I think that's fine,
Yeah.
but again, I just want to verify
Yeah.
it with the owner that I don't see that as a problem. I'm almost certain it's not, but I want to double check before I.
So Peter, when you say rectangle,
I was thinking, yeah, almost what you have there to the dotted line, kind of, not quite that far north.
Yeah, not that. And
A lot of that's gonna be truck turning radius.
Yeah, that's what I was
too.
wondering,
It's
too,
just-
about the truck
yeah,
turn.
It's pretty tight back there. I can't imagine they're gonna store a whole lot. Just thinking of, you got one axis in, you gotta get, or not probably semi-trucks, but trucks pulled in, turned around, loading docks along the whole back edge, like.
Yeah, the site plan
It's gonna
shows
be-
the area, it's 120 feet clear.
Yeah.
And then I think it's another 50 feet beyond that for storage, so it's not a ton, it looks like there's more there than what
Yeah.
they're actually gonna use.
I mean, it's.
Is there a
defined.
reason why the median comes, it looks like there's a median extending off the building where the landscaping is? Is
That's
that-
because it's a drive-in.
And it's,
Well, I'd have to look at what the grades is, or what the grades are. But normally, that sticks down to adjust the grade. Because it's a drive-in, but
Yep.
being that's a loading dock over, it could maybe shorten up, tighten up to the building a little bit.
yeah, I'm just thinking of that turning radius, because that's what's really gonna
Mhm.
cut into that area, if that goes out as far as it does, and we
So
say.
those typically go out 60 feet, and then you have 60-foot clear for your turning. And that's what gives you your 120-foot truck court. And then beyond that is where the storage would be.
the scale, which is so, nobody can read it, but that's 80 feet is the length.
Length of
The scale at the bottom right corner of the
Oh, got it.
picture.
Well, obviously, I'm just trying to mitigate the 16 feet a little bit, and that's where.
So 120 feet goes to where, to this angle point right here. So the truck court, we would consider that the truck court. That's 120 feet. Anything beyond that, which is 50, additional 50 feet, is the outside storage.
Okay.
Technically.
So then I think we're pretty consistent then.
Right, it's, you're not
Confining
gonna
it to there.
have stuff stored up here because otherwise they won't be able to access their
The truck.
driveway door.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's up to pretty much where your pink magenta, whatever color line it is, where that fence kinks and starts to go more north.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think that's where the tall storage stops, right? You allow the tall storage along that 45-degree angle from the south corner up towards the east, and then the second it kinks and starts kicking more north, I would say at that point, the storage has to drop in height. If we are able to.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Like,
Police that policy. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly, exactly.
I can't see that being a problem.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, dropping it from 16 feet to 8, or 16 feet to?
16 feet in the area that he drew.
Yeah.
It's, essentially, it's where the fence is squared off, where your pink line is.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And then Darren, do we say 8 foot, so it's below the fence line for the rest of it?
I think
Or
that's-
still allow 12.
I don't think they need 12, but I
It's
think,
164 feet by 50 feet, that area.
Yeah.
We just gave them, so I mean, that's a decent amount of storage.
yeah, I think I'd go 8 on the rest.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole idea is that I want to allow outdoor storage too. I don't, 'cause I know some cities
Yeah.
don't allow it, period. But I want to allow it, but make sure we're not going overboard and creating something we don't want.
Yeah, and everything else they gave me was 8 foot or less, and, I mean, it's, a lot of it's rolls that you can't even hardly stack those 4 foot high.
Okay. In the outdoor storage permit, John, are we specifically calling out the materials that the applicant stated too?
Oh, for the type of material?
Yeah.
I would prefer not limiting that, so if, you know.
I would prefer limiting it, only from a perspective, it's a CUP. And maybe we can be a little more flexible than just 4 items, it's not the point. But someday, if they park something there that the owner couldn't figure out where to put,
Sure.
and it sat there for 2 years, and it was an eyesore, that'd be the whole point, is that we're trying to let them run their business, not something that's, because again, that's what gives outdoor storage such a bad rap, is people abuse it.
It gets a little hairy just because, like, as industries change, if different materials come online that you want to store, so it almost
I'd be
has
fine
to be
with
more like.
construction materials.
Construction
I'm fine with
materials
that
used for the
vagueness,
business or
yeah, I'm
something
not-
like that.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The area we're talking about, if pallets have 4 foot by 8 foot sheets of insulation, you can fit over 200 pallets of this stuff.
Okay.
Flat, if you're putting it in tight.
Which, if
So-
they had to, they will.
Yeah, so I think that's.
Okay.
Did you see the pile they had out for Draco?
That's a massive building.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do they do projects of that scale?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do they, but I'm assuming some of those projects of that scale, they even store it right on the job site.
Yeah, a lot of
Assuming
it
the
has
timing
delivered
works
there.
with
So
deliveries.
most of what they have, so their business is production, which is the big buildings, new buildings, and then it's also service. So fixing roof leaks, soft areas. So that's primarily what they store on site, is for their repair and service calls. But there are times where they'll have a new build where the site can't take delivery of it. They have to stage it, and they'll stage it here for week, 2 week, 3 weeks before it can go to the site.
Okay, so I guess just looking at the conditions here, John, I guess I'll just start out by saying I'll make a motion to approve the preliminary plat as well as the site plan for lot 1 and 2 with the following conditions. I would strike condition 3 of the staff from a standpoint of instead of calling out 2 rows of coniferous trees, I would just call out, well, I guess maybe that could be a discussion point of, I think screening that corner with 2 or 3 rows of coniferous trees to the extent possible is ideal, but obviously we're dealing with constraints. But screening all the way around, I guess I'm not as concerned, and so I would strike screening all the way around it, but definitely screening the red and green areas highlighted on that map. I'd add a condition that the outdoor storage of 16-foot tall material is limited to the, do we know the dimensions? Ish, well, I think he had them.
60 by 50.
To the south corner, the rectangular area up to the pinch point in the fence, which is about 60 by 50.
160.
160 by 50. And I'd also, I think that when we call out the CUP, oh, and I also make a motion to approve the CUP for outdoor storage for construction materials related to the business, with the condition that we just talked about, where the 16-foot could be and everything else is under 8 feet. I think I covered everything.
And the 8-foot fence.
Oh, and I also would have a condition for 8-foot fence for the outdoor storage.
And the applicant was wanting chain link with slats in it?
I'm okay with that.
Okay.
If someone wants to make a friendly amendment because they completely disagree, let me know.
Okay, we haven't talked about landscaping yet, other than screening.
Oh, as part of my amendment, or part of my motion, I would suggest that we reduce the landscaping requirement by 15%, assuming that you can verify the validity of his comments, which seems to make sense, that just because this site's larger and it's constrained by its shape, whatever, you can't do as much with it, that I think it's an overdue.
I've got to look at how the code is written, but I think Joe's probably read it more than I, or Paul, I'm sure, is the other Paul. So if the amount of landscaping is based on the perimeter of the site, then, it's doesn't matter how big the building is, it's the property. And so granted, this is a larger property, it does have a lot of existing trees, that there's not necessarily a bonus because of the lot, so.
I think there's a hardship because of the shape,
Mhm.
a little bit, and that's why you can't put as much building on it as you would normally.
Because, yeah, so 15%
Well, and it also has the
reduction.
bonus of.
Well, and I
bunch of
will
existing
qualify
trees
staff
that
to
we
use some judgment with the 15%, is meaning that we still want to screen what we talked about, so if that's, when you get into it, if it's 10%, and that's the hard part about putting that kind of random percent on it right now, is until you get into it, understanding
What does
it,
it look like?
it's hard.
And I guess what I would ask is if the applicant redraw the landscaping plan with the 10% reduction versus a 15% reduction, see what that looks like.
Yeah, if you could present both 10 and 15 to staff, I'm comfortable with either
I think
one.
we would come with a brand-new landscape plan addressing everybody's comments, and maybe it's 11%, maybe it's 14%, but we would just say, this is what we'd like to do.
Yeah.
Start over. Paul will fight me if I make him draw 2 plans.
Assuming he's gonna watch this.
Okay,
We have a motion?
He does have a motion. I'll second his motion.
We have a motion from Brown and a second from Crossland. I'm going to ask, is there,
Do we close the public hearing? Did I recall
Ye-
that? happened?
yes, we-
Yeah, thank you.
did. Any more, I guess, any discussion on the motion? I think the one item we missed talking about was the trail along 121st.
yep.
Is the one we're concerned about. And I think I just have some thoughts and confusion there before I'm ready to move forward with a vote on the motion.
So currently, there's a condition that they're installing an additional pedestrian amenity along the trail on Lot 1 in the staff's conditions.
Yep.
Yeah, there's, if you look at the landscaping plan that the applicant is going to redo, I mean, there's a significant amount of landscaping that's on that corner. So if you think of, where pedestrians moving along the trail and then spending considerable time at the corner, waiting across the street, I mean, that's where you want to have landscaping.
Yep.
So then the question would be is there anything else that is needed or justified?
And that's kind of where I was getting at. I don't think so. I just wanted to make sure we're covering that piece of it as well. I think John covered it right early on that we have street level lighting on 121st. I don't envision needing pedestrian lighting along here. Just making sure we're checking our boxes if anything else jumps out from that standpoint. I just wanted to make sure we covered that.
Yeah.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the approval of the motion as previously read?
I was gonna make you repeat it all.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you.
All right. Moving on to notices and announcements.
The next regular Plan Commission meeting is scheduled for November 2nd at 6:30 PM.
Thank you.
And thank you guys. Thanks for bringing your business to Dayton too.
Yes. Other announcements, so as Peter, as you mentioned before, in Dennis, so we have obviously a vacancy on the Planning Commission. We have, I believe it's 7 applicants total that the council will consider on October 10th, so we should have a full commission by the November meeting. Next week, the week of October 9th, we have routine hydrant flushing for all those that are on Dayton Water. On Sunday, October 8th, the fire department will have an open house here at Station 2 in City Hall. There'll be several fire demonstrations as well as a helicopter ambulance. So I don't think they're giving helicopter rides, but there'll be a lot there. The EDA is meeting on Tuesday, October 17th. One of their items on the agenda is consider RFP responses for the sale of EDA property in the village. So as I believe the commission knows, the EDA has been trying to sell that property for a little bit of time for a vision of I'm going to call it mid-density residential. I'm not sure how else to call it, but.
I believe, we were thinking it was EDA property, but it sounds like it's not.
City property, okay. Okay, well, either way, it's up to the city council if they want to sell it or not.
Have they drafted the RFP already, or that's what they have?
Yep.
And so they're expecting this to be developed on a standalone basis? Or, I guess that's where that's where I always struggled with it, is that they went with this framework village plan.
Yep.
Right? That basically, if you're going to execute it, you have to assemble parcels. So to me, if you're really going to try to execute that plan, you shouldn't be selling that land unless the buyer that comes forward can show that they're assembling parcels, because that plan will never get executed if you sell it to the private. And now you have more private parties that need to work together to make something happen to execute that plan, if that's what the direction they want to go.
Yeah, and if they put in resources to build something new, they're going to be not likely to sell.
Right.
To create more parcels to create a plan.
Right. So I don't understand it at all, if that's the plan they're trying to execute.
Once the EDA packet's available, I'll make sure that the planning commission gets a copy.
Feel free to share my opinion with them.
I will. And then for the November meeting, the only item that I'm really anticipating is the Opus project that was tabled earlier tonight. We do also have an application in for the Dayton Parkway neighborhood, which this is the apartment project on the south side of 94. So it's an incomplete application at this point, so I don't know if they'll be ready for November, but that's a possibility.
Are they still leaning towards detached garages?
So this is a different project. So the one you're referring to is Enclave. So that
Yep.
the concept plan for Enclave will go to the council. I believe it's being pushed off to the second meeting in October. So I think that's October 24th.
This was the one with the apartments and then the kind
The
of
detached garages.
mid-dead. Okay,
And yes, they still are pushing detached garages.
I would just, Mayor Dennis, or Mayor Fisher, you're here, I would just say that when you drive around and look at 20-year-old detached garages, they look like crap. And I will say that if there's a hardship involved because there's a high water table, then maybe I get it. But I would put that on the applicant to try to demonstrate that that's why they're doing it, not we're doing it because it's cheaper. Because that's usually why people do it.
Yeah. I would concur.
Not to be confused with the Dayton Neighborhood Parkway project. So this is the south side of 94. They're proposing 374 units of apartments, different scales, or multiple buildings. So the first project is going to come in as one building. I don't remember how many units, but it'd be the larger of the apartment buildings.
Where is this?
Yeah.
South of 94.
South of the Parkway, he came in 2 meetings ago. He was talking about 4 apartment units on the north edge of that property, and then there was a big wetland kind of that you had to come across. And then there was a bunch of medium kind of density townhomes and things that he had. Two different types of
That's not,
townhomes.
that was the one I was referring to when I said the detached garages. That has detached garages.
No.
The detached garages is the Shady property. That's the one on the north side.
Yes.
Is
On
one
81.
where they've got the 4 big apartments going
The
like
Shaney's
this.
the one on 94. 81 is the Enclave.
Yes, 81 is okay.
81's Enclave.
With the detached
Shaney
garages.
property, no, the detached garages were south of 94 positive.
Okay.
There might have been 2 on the Enclave.
I'll double check.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because the detached garages we were talking about was the one north of 81, because that's where the fire chief had said there was some issues potentially with getting.
There was
getting
detached
large.
garages down here, which I get maybe because it's, and that's the
It's a WME
the
real
one you just
estate,
referred to.
south of 94. That's what I wrote down in July of this year. I looked at something there.
Yeah. Yeah, so that is the one, not the Enclave, but the Dayton, what'd you call it?
Parkway neighborhood.
Yeah. That's the one on the concept plan they had. And, again, if there's a hardship because the water table and that's what they need to do, it makes more sense, but I think we should put a little burden on them to make sure that the engineers are confirming that, yeah, that's why you're doing it.
Okay. So either way, the opinion is no detached garages unless there's no other option. Okay.
That's our opinion, or my opinion, excuse me.
I'd echo it.
Okay. That is all I have.
Did we, so the Opus property, did the whole pipe thing get hammered
No,
out?
That's still being worked on. So
That's the problem?
So the Opus had recommended that be tabled. There's essentially, we need to work out where to put stormwater and how to get it from essentially the site to an existing stormwater pond on the other side of Dayton Parkway. Or just store it on site itself. So there's a couple of different options.
The master planning stuff that we're working on, what's our next piece in that, and do we have a schedule of when that's going to happen?
I do not have a schedule. I know that there is one that exists. I believe we'll be meeting, I'm not sure if it's November, I would imagine it would be. But I do not have a schedule.
With the EAW in that corner, that's in the current staging plan, do we have to have any concerns at this point in time on how consistent or not consistent it might be, given that Dayton Parkway shifted and the commercial may or may not be appropriate there? And I don't even know what but I guess that was my concern of why we shouldn't just be moving at a snail's pace. We can move at a snail pace with the actual master plan, but we shouldn't be moving at a snail pace with south of 117, which is in current staging, where the land uses no longer probably make sense because of the road shift.
Very good point.
Very good point. We brought that up, yeah. That whole south area is dying to get touched, and
That, I think that you and I had brought that up at the master planning workshop.
To me, that's, I mean, maybe everything will work out, but to me, that's a bigger priority than figuring out the actual master plan. Because
Well-
that's gonna take time, the master plan, a long time.
You know, the other thing to think about, I mean, we've had a huge amount of development since the interchange was opened up. And if things continue, we're gonna run out of land for industrial. So, you know, the next question would be is how much is enough industrial? And if there should be more, where would that go? And would it be industrial warehouse versus manufacturing?
I think it's tough to distinguish between those two uses, to be honest, because they're kind of a blend. I don't think people understand the Capital Partners building right where we're talking about, where we had all the applications tonight. There's a very good chance that could be warehouse. There's a very good chance it could be manufacturing. They don't know. And so it's hard to just distinguish specifically by that, but I do think more industrial. I guess I'm a little more nervous of big bulk warehouse industrial than I am buildings like the Capital Partners building, or even what Opus is proposing. Those type of buildings are not bulk warehouses like the Cubes and some other buildings. And then they have the flexibility for both warehousing and manufacturing.
Did they leak to us what the Cube's tenant is?
I have not heard.
Okay.
I don't think there is one yet.
Yeah, I thought Zach said that they had one, but maybe it was tentative or. I
I
just,
don't know. I spoke to some people and they hadn't.
Okay.
They didn't seem to think anything was, maybe, doesn't mean there wasn't someone very interested, but.
It's a lot of space to sit with dead air.
Yep, it's a convenience store up in Balsam.
Another one. I'll keep trying.
I guess
Actually, I think,
other things to think about with notice and announcements. John and I were talking a little bit this afternoon on workshops or other things that may be necessary to the commission. One of my ideas, if we get an ordinance change brought forward to us or need for an ordinance change, a good example is the event center. It'd be better to do a lot of that making of the sausage, I think, in a work session than at a meeting. Maybe we can have the Word document up and live edit a thing with track changes so it's easier to read. I was just throwing it out there that for you guys, if you guys have ideas for work sessions, I think they're valuable, but they're a little different than, you know, the actual meeting. It helps shorten the meeting on some of these. And maybe one of the things, if we're really light on November 2nd, we just have we have a regular meeting, then we have a brainstorming work session afterwards for another half hour of some things we're seeing or thinking about. That might give you guys some time. If Opus is the only one that ends up being on it, that might be a good use of the, you know, do Opus right away and then do almost like a goals session.
You know, the other thing about work sessions is they tend to be a little more free-form and a little less inhibited.
Yep.
So you can throw out those crazy ideas and
Yep. Ideas like
toss them out or
where we might want a master plan current or
like crazy thing like moving the parkway or something.
yep. So,
I agree, Peter, with the ordinance concept, because I think it's, I mean, the worst part about some of the ordinance stuff is that when you get the packet and you have 1 week to review it, there's things that go through your brain, but then you sit up here and you hear what all the other commissioners say, you hear what the community says, and all of a sudden your brain's going like this, and you're like, you want me to make an ordinance now?
Yep.
And there's so many things you're trying to think about that you didn't so you don't forget something. So I totally agree with that concept.
so maybe at the November 2nd one, we can have a little bit more of a brainstorming workshop on other things that we might want to do a work session on after the meeting.
I think even like identifying and maybe John, identifying parts of the code, meaning that we have ordinances that we want to tackle, and which ones, because we have a work session, we might as well try to tackle 2 or 3 of them if we're going to do it.
So I would ask if there's anything specific. I know the council has kind of assigned me a certain items to look at, so I can think of, parking standards as one. There's more than one item, too.
I mean, to be honest, our whole commercial code
Yeah.
is from, like, because we haven't had to deal with commercial zoning yet.
We haven't had
dealt-
it.
we had to deal with industrial
2
zoning.
gas
so we-
stations, yeah.
And not saying we need to jump into commercial right away, because we have a lot of work to do, but, I mean, there's so much work in the zoning code.
Sure, yep.
And then I think the only other item, and I guess I'll leave it to you guys if you want to, after John left us to go to the city, we do not have a vice chair. So I'll leave it to you guys if you want to do that tonight, or if you want to wait till we get the next member.
Nominate Darren.
I was going to nominate Paul. Ultimately, if someone wants to do it, of running a meeting, Ryan, Stu, speak up, because I have no problem doing it. I'm sure Paul doesn't either, but, one of the reasons I always hesitant of even being on the planning commission is I know too many people that come in front of me, meaning I do business with them at times. I do their appraisals. I work with the engineers. It's like, just watching, I don't know if I want to be the one that
Running a meeting and
cutting them.
It gives a perception of a conflict of interest, yeah.
I don't know.
Well, maybe we table it till we get
Okay.
our next member.
I just wanted to make a point of order that we did not do that yet.
Yeah.
And the reason I didn't do it earlier was because I didn't know when we'd be getting one, but it's not forgotten.
Yeah.
You just can't miss.
I know.
That's right. Dedication.
Well, hockey season is upon us, and I'm going to be head coaching 2 teams this year, so.
One's not enough?
Hockey coaches seem to do that. Is there not enough people that want to coach that they always double up? Double, triple up?
I got 2 daughters that are playing, so.
You can't pick your favorite.
Yep.
So then, motion to adjourn?
Yep.
Second.
We got a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
This is such a quick meeting, I thought we could just sit up here and talk.